Hey, what is going on, guys? Max Settings here, and welcome back to another review. In today's review, we are going to be taking a look at the Aurorus Audio Borealis. Now, this is a DIY project from two community members that some of you may or may not know. They go online as Ruck and Udis, and this is a project they have been working on since 2018, and this is their DIY dynamic driver headphone. And this is something that I have purchased myself after hearing it at Capital Audio Fest this year. They did not send this to me, nor did a viewer send this to me. This is mine. So today you will get my impressions as someone who owns this headphone. But hopping on into this is the case that it comes with. It is quite a large case. As you can see, it is very thick. And inside you'll find the stock cable as well as the warranty card and a personalized owner card with your name and serial number on it, which is quite a nice touch. And we will get this out of the way and hop on into the review. Okay, so as I previously mentioned, this is a DIY project from both Ruck and Udis. And what they were going for here is basically getting the HD 580, similar kind of FR in tonality with actual bass extension and the detail of HD 800. That was pretty much kind of the goal for this. This was shooting to be the HD 6X0 true upgrade, which really doesn't exist on the market. So that was the goal for this headphone. Now, you do need to keep in mind that this thing is quite DIY, and I know for some people out there that's just going to be a deal breaker, but I will let you decide for yourself, and I would not overlook this just because of its DIY nature, which I guess is sort of a spoiler alert for what is to come. But anyway, hopping on into the build. So the headband structure is just like a Nintal, I believe is how you pronounce it. It's just like metal rods that are bent. Now, there's the kind of controversial choice among the internet of the seat belt for the comfort strap. That's just using a literal car seat belt for comfort strap. Seems to work well. I don't have any issues with it, and I really don't understand why people have so much problem with this. I mean, other people use cloth, I've seen. I mean, so it's a seat belt. Who cares? It works. Some people like it, some people hate it. I really don't mind it. You have the little slide adjustment, kind of like how a Mr. Speaker's headphone does it. Very kind of similar headband structure to a Mr. Speaker's headphone. But you can see stuff like this is kind of 3D printed and doesn't really line up right. A little bit offset, the halves of the little slider. Coming down, the yokes actually feel quite nice. I believe these are injection molded, and I think the cups are too, because the fit and finish on these is a lot nicer than some of the other plastic parts on this headphone. And coming down here, you can see the back of the driver, and there's no grill. So kind of like the HD 700 in that regard, fully exposed driver with no grill on the back. And then coming down to the bottom, mini 4-pin XLRs like an Odyssey, HiFiMan headphone. The Meze Empyrean uses this connector, so very standard connector on the Borealis. And then in here, there is a hybrid pad that is custom made for this. This is a specially made pad, which is, I guess, nice. It's not too thick, but it's very soft. It's squishy, and the cloth part is very soft. And I quite like the pads in this. It's a little bit perforated on the side. And of note, it is vegan all around for those of you that care about that. Now, just some feedback. I would like to see a little more care taken for some of the areas, just to make it seem a little bit less DIY. Like on the connector sides, there's just like some glue. I don't think the camera's gonna pick it up, but just like some loose glue. And I think there's a little bit on one of the cups. Yeah, like kind of like right there. There's just like some loose epoxy that got on the cups. And then, as I mentioned, like those sliders not quite lining up right. Just little fixes like that really go a long way to, I think, making most people overlook kind of the DIY nature of this, because this definitely does seem like a DIY project in the current state. Now, some of you are not going to care about that, but other people definitely will, especially for its price point. And I guess speaking of its price point, let's go into specs. I didn't do it up front because there's really nothing very interesting with the specs on this. All you need to know is it's $900 50mm dynamic driver with a 32 ohm impedance. And then speaking of that driver, the driver in these is not a custom-made driver by any means. It's just a standard 50mm Timpani dynamic driver, combined for $11 each on DigiKey. So it is not a special driver, just wanted to clarify that. And before you were freaking out about the $11 things, let me tell you something. Even on headphones like HD800 Utopia, I guarantee you these companies don't have any more than that in their dynamic drivers either. Even though I know they charge crazy money for replacement cost, that's just because they can. And believe me, it does not cost very much to make a dynamic driver outside of just the R&D. So don't be freaking out about the $11 drivers like I know some people are. Okay, so now moving on into the comfort of the Borealis. So the Borealis I do find pretty comfortable. The comfort strap is okay. It's not the best one I've used, and I know some people have problems with it, like getting slight hot spots. It doesn't really bother me too much. I get, I'd say, a slight bit of fatigue after a couple hours, but nothing terrible. Not the best strap I've used, but definitely not the worst one either. And the pads are quite soft, and it doesn't really clamp too hard and doesn't smash on my ear too much. So I really don't have much issue wearing these for a few hours. So comfort overall is quite good. Okay, and then as for the cable, the stock cable on them is pretty bad, to put it frank. It's basically the old Audeze ZMF stock flat ribbon cable, very stiff. And basically Ruck's just like, it's functional. What else do you want? So if you want a nicer cable, definitely go third party, and I would definitely recommend a third party cable for these. And then as for power requirements, very, very easy to drive, 32 ohm headphone, dynamic driver. You're not going to have any problems driving these on anything, although they are decently source revealing, I've found. So they do pick up on source differences quite well. So just use something that is a good piece of source gear, but you don't need to worry about power on them at all. Okay, so now moving into the sound of the Aurorus Audio Borealis. So as I previously mentioned, the Borealis is going for kind of this FR with bass extension and this level of detail. Now, I will say I'm going to do the ears graph for this as I always do, but this is one of the occasional headphones you get that the ears, for whatever reason, just does not measure correctly at all. I've had this in the past before with a few other headphones, and this one in particular is definitely not accurate at all. So I will go on ahead and throw the graph up, and as I'm going along, I will explain why the ears graph is incorrect. So starting off with the bass on the Borealis, the bass definitely extends. It does roll off, I'd say, a little bit below 30 or 40 hertz, just a couple dB, but as you can see, it does line up quite well with the HD800's bass. So he definitely got the bass extension out of this. There is just a little bit of a mid-bass hump of a couple dB, but nothing terrible. Very, very familiar if you're used to one of the Sennheisers. After that, there is some forward mid-range. Now, this is where the ears graph just goes crazy. I think the ears graph above 400 hertz or something just gets this like big shout all the way to 3K, which is definitely not correct. I do think it's ever so slightly more vocal forward than the 580, but it's only like a dB or two. It's not like 5 dB like the ears graph shows. So you definitely do have some forward vocals in that 1 to 2K area. So you do retain some of the vocal intimacy that the HD600 series is so famously known for. After that, it does seem to roll off a bit after 3K. That dips down, I don't know, 3 or 4 dB, which is also about what this does. And then your treble does start coming back up for around that 6K. Now, I think the Borealis is a little bit brighter than like the 580 and the 600 is. It does have a little bit more of a spice at like that 7K area, but not too bad at all. It's definitely not a bright headphone by any means, but I think it just has a little bit more treble than like the 580 and the 600 do. Just maybe like a dB or two. With a little bit more spice up there in the treble region. So overall, it does seem to stick fairly close to the 580 FR with the bass extension. I think it's slightly more mid-forward and slightly brighter, but all in all, very, very close to 580, and it's definitely better than the HD800's FR. Still, I'd say a little bit of a 6K-ish peak on this, but not nearly as bad as the HD800 is. And I will also throw up the graph of the 580 versus the Borealis versus the 800, which once again, the Borealis is not accurate, although I think the 580 and the 800 are not perfect, but fairly accurate, while the Borealis is not accurate at all. So you can take a look at that real quick, also down in the description below. Okay, so now let's talk about the most interesting factor here, and that is going to be the timbre. Now, I've mentioned in many of my videos that the HD600 series is basically the benchmark of timbre, and there is almost nothing on the market that really gets to this level of timbre. The only stuff really out there, I think, is the ZMF stuff, like the Aurorus and the Aurorus, stuff like that. And the Borealis, I think, does reach its goal of trying to be 600 series timbre. I think it is ever so slightly a little bit metallic in the mid-range, but it's not too bad. It is very, very close to the 600 series timbre. So if you're used to that, I think you will quite like the timbre on the Borealis. Now, as for detail, is it HD800 level detail? I do believe it is. It is very, very resolving headphone. It's not as brutally analytical sounding as the 800. It's more of what you would get out of a more typical $1,000-ish or above. Actually, I think this is more detail than its price point suggests, but you know what I mean. The detail that you would expect out of a flagship tier headphone, but not that really analytical nature of the 800. So yeah, it definitely has very good detail, very good micro details too, and texture, particularly with like the drums and in its treble. And then as for dynamics, we kind of talked about slightly. It does have a decent slam overall. It's not the hardest hitting thing in the world, but it definitely can slam quite well. And as far as dynamic range and macro dynamics, very, very good. Very, very good microdynamics too, and dynamic contrast. Very nice with, like I said, with drums and cymbals and strings, which definitely some of the best I've heard in really any headphone. Very, very good dynamic contrast, which is not something I can say about a lot of high-end headphones. And then as for soundstage, it's not super wide. I think it's slightly wider than 580, but it's not 800 wide. It's not LCD4 or LCD2 or LCD3 wide, but it has decent soundstage. It also images quite well, quite decent imaging on this. So yeah, all in all, I would say that they did basically accomplish their goal. It is basically 580-ish FR and timbre with that bass extension, much better dynamics, and HD800 level detail, if not maybe slightly more. And we will talk about this in the conclusions and kind of comparisons here at the end. So the Borealis, I think, hits above its weight class. I know some people with these that say that it's better than the Utopia, and it is in some areas for sure. I do really want to get the Utopia at home. That one's been avoiding me. I'm really working to try to get one of those in. But the Borealis, I think, has more detail than its price tag would suggest. I definitely think it's up there for, I'd say, probably at least double what it costs in terms of detail. And this is a bit of a market disruptor because this is basically what everybody wanted. HD 600 series with bass extension and better dynamics and detail. So the Borealis kind of is great by being really good at pretty much everything, but not being like the absolute best at anything. So let me kind of explain what I mean. So is it the most detailed headphone out there? No, but it's very, very detailed. Does it have the best timbre out there? No, but it's pretty much right at the top. Does it have the widest stage out there? No, but you can definitely find narrower. Does it have the best dynamics out there? No, but it's very, very dynamic. This is kind of like, I guess like an Olympic medalist, where, you know, you could pick, I don't know, this versus, I don't know, some other headphone, and, you know, this is going to win silver every time. For like 5 events, this is going to sweep 5 silvers. Where another headphone might win a gold, might win a bronze, maybe 2 bronze, and then just not win anything else. So if you want to focus on one area, you can best the Borealis with another headphone for similar money, or if not, definitely more money. I don't think you can best it in detail for the price. But if you want to spend more money, yes. So yeah, if you really want to focus on one area, you can best it in one area, but you're going to sacrifice a lot for that. If you want wider stage, you buy an HD800, but you're going to sacrifice the timbre. You want more detail, I mean, you can buy a, I don't know, LCV4 or I don't know, 07 or something, but you're going to sacrifice the FR and the timbre once again. So you can kind of see what I mean. It's one of those, I guess you can say, jack of all trades, but not absolute master of anything, but it's really good at pretty much everything. So the Borealis pretty much is a market disruptor. I would say it's one of the best headphones that I've ever heard, just because it pretty much does nothing wrong. It does everything really well and doesn't have any glaring flaws to the sound. Now, once again, the build some people are not going to like, and you're going to have to get over that. But as far as the sound goes, it is absolutely spectacular. And I think it's, for a lot of people, it's going to make a lot of stuff irrelevant. I really don't want to just, I mean, this is going to be like 40 minutes. I start going into, well, how does it compare to the, you know, Utopia, Clear, Otor, Aria, 800? I mean, this can go on and on. So all you need to know is, for the price point, I think it's about double the detail that it should have for this kind of price. And it has better timbre than pretty much anything, except maybe the ZMFs are about on par with the ZMFs. For, I mean, pretty much any price range. So yeah, that is the Borealis. I mean, I'm kind of at a loss for words here, just because it's really, really good, and you definitely should be trying to buy one of these. It's definitely worth its $900 asking price for sure. It's honestly probably worth more than that. And of note here at the end, there also is a closed back version of this coming that I have heard, and I will tell you that I am very, very confident in saying it's the best closed back headphone on the market, period. And which is the Australis. So I don't think I will buy one, but I will see maybe if I can get a loaner unit of that. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed my review of the Borealis. If you want to ask me how it compares to a headphone or some other headphone, just ask in the comments to save some time in this video. But anyway, guys, links of where to buy this in the description. Now, of note, he's making, I'd say, like 2 or 3 of these every weekend, so you are going to have to be, you know, pretty much refreshing the page to see when he puts them up. So they're not super readily available, but the production will ramp up over the coming months, so keep your eyes out for them. My links to the ears graph, Twitter, contact email, and all other relevant information in the description below. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed my review of the Borealis. Definitely go buy one because it is fantastic. But look forward to seeing you in the next review. Bye.